So, if Jesus walked into this room today and said, I have a message for you to give someone, what would you do with it? Would you keep it to yourself? Would you wait until you were definitely ready to deliver the message? Would you think, oh, do you know what? I'm sure Jesus gave it to somebody else. They can do it instead. Or would you take the message and pass it on? In Mark 6, the disciples were sent out with a simple assignment. Go, preach, heal, serve. Basically, tell people about Jesus. And that same calling speaks to us as well. And the theme that I want us to hear is really simple. It will be a few more pages long, but it's actually really simple. Don't just receive the message, pass the message. Because the message is too important to keep to yourself. Mark 6 begins with Jesus returning to his hometown. He goes into the synagogue and begins teaching, and at first people are amazed. They ask, where did this man get these things? They recognize his wisdom. They know his mighty works. They also know his family. They know his background. So instead of responding with faith, they respond with familiarity. I don't know why I put that word in there. It's one of the words I find difficult to say. They say essentially, isn't this just Jesus? And Mark tells us that they took offense at him. And then something heartbreaking happens. Jesus could do no mighty work there, apart from healing a few sick people. Their unbelief was too great. And maybe that's my point today. You can be close to Jesus, but still miss Jesus. You can hear the message and refuse to believe it. You can know all the stories, but never fully surrender your life. You can grow up around church and still never follow Christ. You can know about Jesus without knowing Jesus. And that should challenge us all, because the message of Jesus isn't simply information. It demands a response from us. Because Jesus sends ordinary people. Jesus had been rejected in his hometown, but he doesn't stop the mission. He's got 12 disciples, and he sends them out. What Jesus doesn't do, he doesn't send the angels or professional speakers. He didn't send people who have everything figured out. He sends disciples, ordinary people who've spent time with Jesus. And Jesus gives them authority. He tells them to preach repentance, to drive out demons, to heal the sick, to serve people, basically to tell them the good news. In other words, Jesus had given them a message, and now he wanted them to pass it on. And that's still how the gospel works. Someone told you, now you tell somebody else. Someone prayed for you, now you pray for someone else. Someone encouraged you, now you encourage someone else. Someone showed you the love of Jesus, now you show that love to someone else. Because the gospel is not a message that stops with us. It is a message that moves through us. And Jesus says something really key. He says you don't have to have everything to go. In fact, Jesus tells the disciples what not to take. No bread, no bag, no money, no extra clothes, No unnecessary luggage. Why? Well, because Jesus wanted them to learn dependence. He was teaching them, you don't need everything to obey me. Because sometimes I'm guilty of saying, and maybe you are, I'll do what Jesus wants when I have more time. I'll share my faith when I know my Bible better. I'll help people when I have more money. I'll step out when I feel more confident. I'll tell someone about Jesus when I have all the answers. But Jesus says no. Go with what you have. You don't need to know everything. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need a theology degree. You don't need a microphone. You don't need a platform. What you do need is a willing heart. You need a testimony. You need a story. You need a message. And that message is Jesus. Now, when we hear the phrase pass the message, we might think it means standing in front of somebody and preaching. And sometimes it does. But passing the message is much bigger than standing behind a pulpit or a table like this. You pass the message when you forgive someone. You pass the message when you serve someone who can't repay you. You pass the message when you pray for someone. You pass the message when you encourage someone who is discouraged. You pass the message when you refuse to join in gossip. You pass the message when you show kindness to someone who everyone else ignores. You pass the message when you tell someone Jesus hasn't forgotten you. Sometimes the loudest sermon you will ever preach is the way you live. People may never read the Bible, but they may read your life. You are the living fifth gospel. They will watch how you respond when things go wrong. They will watch how you treat people who disagree with you. They will watch whether your faith survives difficult seasons. They will watch whether your Christianity is real on Monday morning in a traffic jam and on a Saturday night when you're out. So ask yourself this: what message is my life passing on? So I just want you to imagine for a second that Jesus is standing in front of you today. And he says, I've placed something in your hands. Pass it on. What would it be? Maybe it's your maybe it's a story of how God brought you through something. Maybe it's an encouraging word. Maybe it's an invitation to church. Maybe it's a Bible verse. Maybe it's forgiveness you've been withholding. Maybe it's kindness you've been postponing. Maybe it's the gospel, the story of Jesus that you've been too afraid to share. Because what has God placed in your hands? Because what God gives us isn't always meant to stop with us. Blessing is meant to become a blessing. The message is meant to be passed on. The disciples didn't wait for the perfect opportunity, they just went. They went into towns, they went into homes, they met ordinary people, they prayed, they preached, they served, they trusted God. And perhaps that's the challenge for us today. Stop waiting for the perfect moment. There may never be one. Don't wait until you're fearless. Go while you're nervous. Don't wait until you know everything. Go with what you currently know. Don't wait until your life is perfect. Let God use the imperfect life. Don't wait until you have a huge platform. Start with one person, one conversation, one prayer, One act of kindness, one invitation, one testimony, one person at a time. So who needs to hear the message you're carrying? Who needs the encouragement? Who needs the forgiveness? Who needs the hope? Who needs to know that God still loves them? Who needs to hear that Jesus can change a life? Who needs to hear your story? Maybe it's someone in your family, maybe it's a friend, maybe it's a neighbour, maybe it's someone at work. The disciples were sent out with the message. And today we have received that same message. We have received the same grace, the same forgiveness, and the same hope. And now Jesus says, pass it on. Don't keep the message locked inside the church. Take it into your home, into your workplace, into your friendships, into your community. Take it wherever God sends you. Because somebody needs to hear through you what Jesus has done. So this week, don't just hear the message. Pass the message. Because there's no greater life than that.